The Endurance drifted silently at the edge of known space, its once proud hull now scared and dull. The starship hung against the backdrop of distant stars like a forgotten relic, which, in the eyes of the Galactic Alliance, it most certainly was. Captain James Gray stood on the observation deck of the Alliance transport ship, staring at what would be his new command. His jaw tightened as he took in the sight. After 15 years of distinguished service, this was his reward. Babysitting an obsolete vessel during its final voyage to the scrapyard. She doesn't look like mush, does she? The voice belonged to Admiral Porter, who had appeared beside him. No, sir, she doesn't, Gray replied, keeping his voice neutral despite the disappointment churning in his gut. The Endurance has quite a history, Porter said, his eyes fixed on the ship. 3 different species have tried to crew her. All of them gave up and declared the ship cursed. Gray raised an eyebrow. Cursed, sir. Strange malfunctions. Systems that work one day and fail the next. Navigation computers that send the ship off course. Porter shrugged. The last captain claimed the ship had a mind of its own. With respect, sir, ships don't have minds. Porter smiled thinly. Perhaps not. But I'd watch yourself with this one. Your orders are simple. Take her to the Centauri scrapyards and oversee her decommissioning. Gray nodded stiffly. Yes, sir. 2 days later, Gray walked through the empty corridors of the Endurance with Chief Engineers Jack Miller and Tom Reed. Their footsteps echoed in the silence, the sound bouncing off metal walls that hadn't heard human voices in decades. Main power is at 60%, Jack said, checking his tablet. Life support is stable, but the artificial gravity keeps fluctuating. Tom ran his hand along a control panel. This technology is old, but not obsolete. Some of these systems are just different. Gray stopped at a viewport and looked out at the stars. Different how? It's like... Tom paused, searching for the right words. It's like someone built this ship to think rather than just function. Ships don't think, Gray said, echoing his words to the Admiral. This one might be the exception, Jack said, kneeling beside an open panel. Look at this. Gray crouched next to him. Inside the panel was a glowing blue crystal surrounded by circuitry, unlike anything he had seen before. That's the AI core, Jack explained. But it's not like our standard ship as. This one uses quantum principles that even the most advanced Alliance species don't fully understand. Can you get it working? Gray asked. Jack and Tom exchanged looks. We can try, Tom said. But every alien crew that's attempted to interface with it has failed. We're not aliens, Gray replied. We're humans. And right now, this ship is our responsibility. Later that day, Gray sat in the captain's chair on the empty bridge, reviewing the ship's history on his tablet. The Endurance had been found drifting in deep space over 100 years ago. The Alliance had claimed it, studied it, and eventually tried to put it into service. But the ship had resisted every attempt to make it a functional part of the fleet. The communications panel suddenly lit up, startling him. Captain Gray, came the voice of Admiral Porter. We have a situation. Gray straightened in his chair. What kind of situation? Sir, the Void Empire has attacked one of our border outposts. We're scrambling the fleet, but we need every available ship for a diplomatic mission to the Arcturus system. Gray blinked in surprise. Sir, the Endurance is hardly ready for. I'm aware of the ship's condition, Captain, Porter cut in. But right now, it's the only vessel we can spare. We need you to transport an ambassador to Arcturus to negotiate for their support against the Void Empire. Gray looked around at the empty bridge, thought about the skeleton crew he had been given, and the ship's reputation for unreliability. Sir, with all due respect, this ship is headed for the scrapyard for a reason. Those orders have been rescinded, Captain. The Endurance is now on active duty. The Admiral's tone left no room for argument. Ambassador Lin will board your vessel at 800 hours tomorrow. Be ready to depart immediately after. The communication ended, leaving Gray alone with his thoughts and a ship that had failed every crew that had ever commanded it. The main engines are online, but I wouldn't call them stable, Jack reported as he and Tom worked frantically in the engine room. Define not stable, Gray asked over the comm. They're putting out about 70% power, but the output keeps spiking and dropping, Jack explained. It's like the ship can't decide if it wants to move or not. Gray turned to the young officer at the navigation console. Ben, what's our status? Lieutenant Ben Foster shook his head in frustration. The nav system is fighting me, sir. It's like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape. We have 6 hours until the ambassador arrives, Gray reminded them. I need solutions, not problems. Captain, Tom's voice came over the comm. I think I know why the ship has been so difficult for previous crews. Go ahead. The aliens who tried to crew this ship, they were all highly logical species. The Vex with their hive mind, the Tellarites with their mathematical precision. But this ship, it's not built for logic. There was excitement in Tom's voice now. The systems require intuition, adaptability. They need a crew that can think outside standard patterns. They need humans, Jack added. Gray considered this. Humans were among the newest members of the Alliance, still considered primitive by many of the older species, but they had been admitted precisely because of their unpredictability and resourcefulness. So you're saying we might succeed where others failed because we're too primitive to know better? Gray couldn't help but smile at the irony. I wouldn't put it that way, sir, Tom replied. But yes, essentially. The ship suddenly shuddered, and the lights dimmed before brightening again. What was that? Gray demanded. The power cord just surged, Jack reported. But this is strange. Power output has stabilized at 85%. It's better than it was before. Sir, Ben called from the navigation console. The navigational interface just changed. I think it's adapting to the way I work. Gray stood and walked to the center of the bridge, looking around at the ancient ship that had been dismissed as weak and unreliable. Perhaps there was more to the Endurance than anyone had realized. Keep working, he ordered. We have an important mission ahead of us, and the Alliance is counting on us. Let's show them what this old ship can do with a human crew. As if in response, the lights brightened throughout the bridge, and for the first time in decades, the Endurance hummed with a steady, powerful energy. Ambassador Lin arrived exactly at 800 hours. She was tall and slender with perfect posture that made Captain Gray feel somewhat slouched in comparison. 2 Alliance observers accompanied her, their expressions making it clear they had doubts about the mission. Captain Gray, the ambassador said with a small bow. I appreciate your ship's availability in this time of need. Gray nodded respectfully. We're honored to serve, Ambassador. Though I should warn you that the Endurance has a complicated history. I am aware of the ship's reputation, she replied, her face showing no emotion. However, even a troubled vessel is better than no vessel at all. One of the observers, a blue-skinned alien named Krell, stepped forward. We will be monitoring and reporting on the ship's performance, he said. The Alliance Council is concerned about using such an unreliable craft for a mission of this importance. Gray felt his jaw tighten, but kept his voice even. Of course, we welcome your observations. All systems ready for departure, Captain, Ben reported from the navigation console. Gray sat in the captain's chair, feeling the weight of responsibility. Take us out, slow and steady. The Endurance hummed as its engines powered up. The ship moved forward smoothly at first, then suddenly lurched, causing everyone on the bridge to grab onto something for balance. What was that? Gray demanded. The propulsion system just hiccuped. Tom's voice came over the comm. It's stabilizing now. Krell made a disapproving sound. This is exactly what we feared. Gray ignored him. Steady as she goes, Ben. Let's show some patience with the old girl. As they cleared the space dock, Chief Engineer Liz Parker entered the bridge. Her hands and face were smudged with grease, and her red hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Captain, I think I've figured something out about the ship's systems, she said, excitement in her voice. Go ahead. It's like they're designed to work against standard procedures. Liz's eyes were bright with discovery. Every time we follow the Alliance manual, the systems fight back. But when we try something different, something unpredictable, they respond better. Gray considered this. You're saying the ship wants us to break the rules. Not exactly break them, Liz replied. More like rewrite them. Create new ones that work for this specific ship. Krell stepped forward again. That is highly irregular and potentially dangerous. Liz turned to him. So is flying a ship that refuses to work properly. Sometimes you have to adapt. Adaptation is a human specialty, Gray said. He turned to Liz. You have my permission to make whatever adjustments you think necessary, as long as they don't compromise safety. Thank you, Captain, Liz said, already heading back toward engineering. Krell watched her go, his antenna twitching with concern. I will be noting this departure from protocol in my report. Gray smiled thinly. Please do. Over the next 2 days, the human crew began making changes to the Endurance that shocked the Alliance observers. Liz and her engineering team rewired entire sections, bypassing what they called logical bottlenecks in the ship's systems. Jack reconfigured the power distribution network in a way that no Alliance engineer would ever approve. Tom created manual overrides for systems that were typically fully automated. This is chaos, Krell complained to Gray as they watched the engineers work. How can you possibly maintain control of a vessel with such haphazard modifications? Sometimes chaos is exactly what you need, Gray replied, especially when logic has failed. The remarkable thing was that the ship seemed to respond to these changes. Power output increased to 90%. The artificial gravity stabilized. Even the lights seemed brighter. Ambassador Lin observed these improvements with interest. Your species has a unique approach to problem solving, Captain, she noted. It is unpredictable, but effective. That's humans in a nutshell, Gray said with a smile. On the 3rd day of their journey, they encountered their first real test. The quickest route to Arcturus required passage through an asteroid field that was typically navigated using automated systems and precise calculations. The auto-nav system is completely offline, then reported, his hands hovering over the manual controls. Gray looked at the dense field of asteroids ahead. Can we go around? Not without adding 3 days to our journey, Ben replied. We're already pushing our deadline. Krell stepped forward. This is unacceptable. Without the navigation computer, passing through this field is suicide. Gray looked at Ben. How good are you at manual piloting? Ben swallowed hard. I've done simulations, sir, but never anything like this. Sometimes simulations are all the preparation you get, Gray said. Do you think you can do it? Ben studied the asteroid field, then the ship's controls. After a moment, he nodded. Yes, sir. I believe I can. This is madness, Krell protested. Gray ignored him. Take us in, Ben. Nice and easy. As they entered the asteroid field, everyone on the bridge held their breath. Ben's hands moved across the controls with growing confidence. He seemed to develop an intuitive feel for how the ship responded, adjusting his inputs based on the Endurance's reactions rather than standard piloting procedures. Asteroid approaching port side, the sensor officer called out. Ben didn't hesitate. He banked the ship hard to starboard, then immediately corrected as another asteroid appeared in their path. His movements weren't textbook perfect. They were messy, intuitive, human. And the ship responded beautifully. He's doing it, Ambassador Lin said quietly, watching as Ben navigated through the field with increasing skill. Even Krell seemed impressed. How is this possible? The calculations required to navigate this field manually are beyond most pilots. He's not calculating, Gray explained. He's feeling, reacting. It's what humans do best. As they emerged from the asteroid field unscathed, a cheer went up from the bridge crew. Ben sat back in his chair, a look of amazement on his face. "The ship, it was almost like it helped me," he said. "When I stopped trying to force it to move exactly how I wanted and just worked with it instead." Gray placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. "Well done, Lieutenant." Later, in his quarters, Gray recorded in his log, "Day 3 aboard the Endurance. It seems this old ship doesn't need a perfect crew. It needs a human crew. And maybe, just maybe, we're exactly what it's been waiting for all this time." Outside his window, the stars streaked by as the once weak vessel carried them toward their destination, growing stronger with each passing day. Medical Officer Mary Wilson had always been curious. It was what made her a good doctor, her desire to understand how things worked, whether they were human bodies or alien physiologies. Now that curiosity led her through the less traveled corridors of the Endurance. "Captain, you need to see this," she said over the comm as she examined a strange panel she had discovered behind a loose wall section in the medical bay. 10 minutes later, Captain Gray arrived with Tom and Liz. "What am I looking at?" Gray asked, studying the unusual circular indentation in the wall. "I'm not sure," Mary replied. "But watch this." She placed her hand against the panel. The circle lit up with a soft blue glow, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed strangely familiar. "That's a heartbeat," Tom said suddenly. "A human heartbeat." Mary nodded. "And it's matching mine exactly. When I remove my hand." She pulled away, and the light faded. Nothing. Liz stepped forward and placed her hand on the panel. Again, it lit up, pulsing in time with her heart. "It's a biometric interface," Liz said, excitement in her voice. "But one that's specifically tuned to human physiology." "Have you tried any of the Alliance observers?" Gray asked. Mary nodded. Krell put his hand on it. Nothing happened. Gray looked thoughtful. "How many of these interfaces have you found?" "So far, 3. All in places that don't make sense according to the ship's official schematics." Mary pulled up a small holographic display. "One here in medical, one near the engine room, and one in a corridor on Deck 5. "I bet there are more," Tom said. "Maybe all over the ship." Gray turned to Liz. "Find them. Map them. Figure out what they do." "Already on it, Captain," she replied with a grin. Over the next few days, the crew discovered dozens of the biometric interfaces throughout the ship. Each responded only to human touch, and each seemed to serve a different purpose. Some controlled environmental systems, others affected power distribution, and a few seemed connected to parts of the ship that weren't even on the official diagrams. Most remarkably, the more the humans interacted with these interfaces, the better the ship seemed to function. Systems that had been operating at 80 or 90% capacity now reached full power. Malfunctions became less frequent. It was as if the Endurance was healing itself. "It's almost like the ship was designed for humans," Liz said during a meeting in the captain's quarters. "Or at least for beings with human-like neural patterns." "But the ship is at least 100 years old," Gray pointed out. "Humans have only been part of the Alliance for 30 years. Tom leaned forward. "What if it's older than we thought? What if it wasn't built by any species we know?" The room fell silent as they considered this possibility. "You're suggesting," Ambassador Lin said carefully, "that this ship might have been built by human ancestors, ones who achieved space travel long before Earth's recorded history. It would explain why the ship responds to us," Mary said, "and why other species have struggled with it." Krell, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. "This is mere speculation. There is no evidence that humans achieved space travel before their documented history. Except maybe this ship," Tom replied. Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarm suddenly blared. "Captain, to the bridge," came Ben's voice over the comm. When Gray reached the bridge, Ben was standing at the tactical station, his face pale. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "Security triggered a sweep of all systems after we detected a power surge in an unmapped section," Ben explained. "And we found this." He gestured to the screen. Gray stared at the display. which showed a detailed schematic of what appeared to be weapon systems, advanced ones that weren't supposed to exist on a ship like the Endurance. "Are you telling me this ship is armed?" Gray asked. "Not just armed, sir," Security Chief Will Parker said as he joined them. "According to these readings, it's carrying weapons technology that's centuries ahead of anything in the Alliance arsenal." Will was a former Earth military man, solid and reliable with sharp eyes that missed nothing. If he said the weapons were advanced, Gray believed him. "Have you tested them?" Gray asked. Will shook his head. "The systems are dormant. We can see them, but we can't access them yet." Yet, Krell had entered the bridge and heard the last part of the conversation. "Captain, if this vessel is secretly armed, the Alliance Council must be informed immediately." Gray turned to him. "We don't even know if these weapons are functional. Let's not cause a panic until we have more information." As if on cue, the ship's sensors began to beep urgently. "Captain," Ben called out, "we've got company. Void Empire patrol ship, closing fast." Gray moved to the command chair. "Hail them." No response. Ben replied. "They're charging weapons." "Evasive maneuvers," Gray ordered. "Ambassador, Mr. Krell, I suggest you secure yourselves." The Endurance banked sharply as the Void Empire ship fired. The shot missed by a narrow margin. "Return fire," Gray commanded automatically, then caught himself. "Sorry, we don't have weapons." But even as he said it, something strange happened. Panels throughout the bridge began to glow with the same blue light as the biometric interfaces. The ship hummed with sudden power. "Captain," Will said, his voice filled with wonder, "the weapon systems are coming online." On the main screen, they watched as hidden compartments in the Endurance's hull slid open, revealing sleek, powerful-looking weapon arrays. "They're activating on their own," Will reported, "and targeting the Void ship with precision I've never seen before." A beam of brilliant blue energy lanced out from the Endurance, striking the Void Empire ship with surgical accuracy. The enemy vessel's engines went dark immediately, though the ship itself remained intact. "They've been disabled," Will said, checking his readings. "Complete power failure, but life support is intact." The bridge crew stared in stunned silence. "The weapons," Gray said finally, "they activated when we were under genuine threat." "This ship isn't just designed for humans," Liz whispered. "It's designed to protect them." As they watched, the weapon systems retracted back into the hull, once again hidden from view. Ambassador Lin turned to Gray, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Captain, it seems your weak ship has quite a few secrets left to reveal." Gray nodded, looking around at the bridge of the Endurance with new eyes. "I think we're just beginning to understand what this ship really is." And somewhere deep in its ancient systems, the Endurance continued to awaken, responding to the human crew that had finally found it after so many years of waiting. News traveled fast in space. Within 2 days of their encounter with the Void Empire Patrol, Captain Gray received an urgent message from Alliance Command. "The Void Empire is calling for your surrender," Admiral Porter's hologram explained, his face grim. "They're claiming we violated their territory with an illegal warship." "We defended ourselves against an unprovoked attack," Gray replied. "And the Endurance is registered as an Alliance vessel. A vessel that suddenly has weapons capabilities no one knew about," Porter pointed out. "It's causing quite a stir in the Council. Some members are even suggesting that humans have been developing secret weapons technology." Gray sighed. "That's ridiculous. We didn't build this ship. We're just the first crew to make it work properly." "I believe you," Porter said. "But right now, the Void Empire is using this as an excuse to mobilize their main fleet. They're heading toward the Arcturus system." Gray felt a chill run down his spine. "Directly into the path of our diplomatic mission." "Exactly. You need to change course immediately. Fall back to Alliance space where we can protect you." Gray glanced at Ambassador Lin, who had been listening silently. She gave him a slight nod. "With respect, Admiral," Gray said, "We can't abandon our mission. The alliance with Arcturus is too important, especially with the Void Empire becoming more aggressive." Porter's expression hardened. "That's an order, Captain. The Endurance is too valuable to risk in a direct confrontation." Too valuable. Gray raised an eyebrow. "A week ago, it was headed for the scrapyard." "Things change," Porter replied cryptically. "Fall back immediately." "That's an order." The transmission cut off abruptly. Ambassador Lin approached Gray. "The Admiral is right about one thing, Captain. The Void Empire's main fleet is nothing to take lightly." "I know," Gray admitted, "but something doesn't feel right about this. Why are they suddenly so interested in an old ship they'd previously dismissed as junk?" "Perhaps," Lin suggested carefully, "they know something about the Endurance that even the Alliance doesn't." Despite the Admiral's orders, Gray made a difficult decision. Rather than returning to Alliance space, they would continue their mission through the Great Nebula, a vast cloud of gas and dust that would hide them from sensors, but was notoriously difficult to navigate. "This is mutiny," Krell warned as the Endurance approached the swirling purple and blue gases of the nebula. "I prefer to think of it as creative interpretation of orders," Gray replied. "Besides, our mission to Arcturus hasn't been officially recalled." As they entered the nebula, the ship's sensors began to struggle with the interference. Ben focused intently at the navigation console, his hands moving almost instinctively over the controls. "This isn't as hard as I expected," he said with surprise. "It's almost like the ship knows where to go." Gray looked at the main view screen, where the nebula swirled around them in beautiful but disorienting patterns. "Can you explain that?" Ben shook his head. "No, sir. By all normal standards, we should be flying blind in here. But the navigation system is compensating in ways I've never seen before." "It's the same in engineering," Liz reported over the comm. "The engines are automatically adjusting to the changing gas densities. It's like the ship has been here before." That thought had barely registered when Ben called out, "Captain, I'm detecting a large structure ahead." "What kind of structure?" Gray asked, leaning forward in his chair. "Unknown, but it's massive. And, sir, I think it's artificial." As they drew closer, the nebula parted to reveal what could only be described as a space station. Ancient and enormous, its design strangely familiar. "It matches the Endurance," Tom said in awe, studying the sensor readings. "Same materials, same design principles. They were built by the same civilization." Gray turned to Ambassador Lin. "I think we just found something more important than our scheduled diplomatic mission." She nodded, eyes wide. "The Alliance has searched for evidence of precursor civilizations for centuries. This could change everything." "Prepare a boarding party," Gray ordered. "I want to know what's inside that station." Jack led the boarding team, along with Tom, Will, and 2 security officers. They docked with the station using one of the Endurance's shuttles and carefully made their way inside. The interior was dark until they entered, when soft blue lights began to activate along the floors and walls, responding to their presence just as the ship had. "It recognizes us," Jack whispered, "just like the Endurance." They found their way to what appeared to be a central control room. The consoles were similar to those on their ship, but larger and more complex. "I think I can interface with this," Jack said, studying one of the panels. "It has the same biometric connections we found on the ship." He placed his hand on the panel. Immediately, the station hummed to life around them, systems activating one by one. Data began to stream across the screens in an unfamiliar language that somehow seemed almost readable. "It's working," Jack said excitedly. "I'm going to try to establish a direct connection with the Endurance." He pressed several controls in sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a powerful surge of energy flowed from the station to the ship. "What did you do?" Will demanded as the lights flickered. Jack looked confused. "I just tried to sync their systems. I didn't expect." He was cut off by Gray's urgent voice over the comm. "Boarding party. Return immediately. Something's happening to the ship. Back on the Endurance, Gray watched in amazement as new holographic displays appeared on the bridge. Systems they never knew existed came online, and the ship's power level surged beyond anything they had seen before. "Captain," Ben called out, "sensors are detecting multiple ships entering the nebula." "It's the Void Empire fleet." Gray's mind raced. They were trapped, with a massive enemy fleet closing in and a ship undergoing an unexpected transformation. "How many ships?" he asked. "At least 20, Ben replied grimly, "including their flagship." Krell stepped forward. "We must surrender. There is no other option." "Actually," Liz said as she rushed onto the bridge, "I think there is." "Captain, the station didn't just send energy to us. It sent data. Massive amounts of it. And the ship is changing." As if to confirm her words, the entire bridge shifted, panels reconfiguring and new stations appearing as sections of wall smoothly slid away to reveal them. "What's happening?" Gray demanded. Liz's eyes were bright with excitement. "The Endurance is transforming. This isn't just an old ship, Captain. It's a legendary warship, one of the most powerful ever built. And it's finally waking up." On the main view screen, they could see the Void Empire fleet approaching, weapons charged and ready for battle. "They know," Ambassador Lin said softly. "They've always known what this ship really is. That's why they want to destroy it before it fully awakens." Gray looked around at his crew, then at the transformed bridge of the Endurance. "Well then," he said, settling into the captain's chair, which now hummed with energy beneath him, "let's not disappoint them." The Void Empire fleet surrounded them, weapons locked and ready to fire. On the bridge of the Endurance, Captain Gray and his crew watched as the massive ships moved into attack formation. "They're hailing us," Ben reported. Gray nodded. On screen, the face that appeared belonged to a Void Empire admiral, his gray skin and sharp features set in a cold expression. "Alliance vessel, power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Gray stood from his captain's chair, which now pulsed with energy beneath him. "This is Captain James Gray of the Alliance ship Endurance. We are on a diplomatic mission and have not violated your territory. Your unprovoked attack on us earlier was an act of war." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Do not play games, human. We know what that ship really is. The Alliance may have forgotten, but the Empire remembers the Devastation War. We will not allow a Dawnbreaker to operate in this galaxy again." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge crew looking at each other in confusion. "Dawnbreaker." Gray turned to Ambassador Lin. What was he talking about? Lin looked troubled. "The Devastation War is more legend than history. A conflict said to have occurred thousands of years ago between ancient civilizations and the Dawnbreakers." She hesitated. "They were supposedly warships of unimaginable power, capable of destroying entire fleets single-handedly." "Sir," Will called from the tactical station, which had expanded to 3 times its original size during the transformation. "All enemy ships are charging weapons." Gray returned to his chair. "Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, even as they adjusted to the ship's new configuration. Energy hummed through the vessel, systems lighting up that had been dormant for centuries. "Liz," Gray called over the comm. "What's our status?" "Captain, you wouldn't believe what's happening down here," Liz replied, her voice filled with excitement. "The engine room has completely reconfigured itself. Power output is off the charts. And the ship's eye, it's fully awake now." As if in response to her words, a holographic figure appeared on the bridge. A human-like woman made of blue light. "Greetings, Captain Gray," the figure said. "I am Dawn, the artificial intelligence of this vessel. After 3,000 years of dormancy, I am fully operational again thanks to your human crew." Gray stared at the hologram. "You've been waiting for humans all this time. I was designed to respond only to human neural patterns," Dawn explained. My creators programmed me to recognize their descendants whenever they might return to the stars. Before Gray could ask more questions, the ship rocked as the first volley from the Void Empire fleet struck their shields. Shields holding at 98%, Will reported with surprise. These aren't the same shields we had before. Battle systems are online, Captain, Dawn announced calmly. Would you like me to demonstrate their capabilities? Gray looked at the tactical display, showing 20 Void Empire ships against their one. Despite the Endurance's transformation, they were still heavily outnumbered. Can we survive this fight? He asked Dawn. The hologram smiled. This vessel was designed to face odds far greater than these. The Dawnbreakers were the most advanced warships ever created by the ancient Human Empire. Human Empire, Ambassador Lin whispered in shock. Gray made his decision. Show me what this ship can do, Dawn. Defensive measures only. I don't want to destroy them if we don't have to. As you wish, Captain. The Endurance moved with sudden speed and grace that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size. It slipped between enemy vessels as their weapons' fire passed harmlessly through the space where the ship had been moments before. This is amazing, Ben said from the navigation console, which now seemed to be anticipating his commands before he made them. The ship is enhancing my inputs, making adjustments I didn't even know were possible. The Endurance fired precise, surgical strikes that disabled the enemy ship's weapons systems without destroying the vessels themselves. One by one, the mighty Void Empire warships fell silent. They're retreating, Will announced as the remaining functional ships began to pull back. Gray turned to Dawn's hologram. You could have destroyed them all, couldn't you? Yes, Dawn replied simply. The Dawnbreakers were built during a time of great war, but their purpose was always to protect, not to conquer. My creators believed in using power responsibly. Your creators, Gray said. They were humans from Earth. Not from Earth specifically, Dawn corrected. Humans once ruled a vast empire spanning thousands of worlds. Earth was just one colony among many, though a special one, what my creators called the Cradle World. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this revelation. What happened to them? Ambassador Lin asked finally. To this ancient human empire. Dawn's expression grew solemn. A great catastrophe occurred approximately 12,000 of your years ago. The details were lost even to me, but it resulted in the collapse of human civilization across the galaxy. My creators launched ships like the Endurance with instructions to monitor developing worlds and wait for humans to return to space. That's why the ship seemed so difficult for other species to use, Tom realized. It wasn't broken. It was just waiting for us. Dawn nodded. The Endurance is one of several vessels scattered throughout the galaxy. Each contains data about your heritage and technology that can help humanity reclaim its place among the stars. Gray looked at Ambassador Lin. I think our diplomatic mission just got a lot more interesting. Lin smiled. Indeed. The Alliance Council will need to reevaluate humanity's place in the galactic community after this. 3 months later, the Endurance led a new fleet of Alliance ships. With the data recovered from the ancient station, humans have begun adapting the advanced technology to modern vessels. Captain Gray, now Admiral Gray, stood on the bridge of his ship as they prepared to visit another set of coordinates provided by Dawn. Do you think we'll find more ships like the Endurance? Liz asked, now his first officer. I hope so, Gray replied. But more importantly, I hope we find the wisdom to use them properly. Dawn's hologram appeared beside them. Your ancestors faced that same challenge, Admiral. They created ships of great power, but they understood that strength without compassion leads only to destruction. Gray nodded, looking out at the stars, stars that now held new meaning for humanity. A ship is only as strong as the principles of those who command it. The Endurance wasn't weak, it was just waiting for the right crew. As they set course for the unknown, the once-forgotten vessel hummed with power and purpose, carrying the descendants of its creators back to their rightful place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as protectors of a legacy reborn.